If you're feeling uninspired, bored, or even burnt out from bread and butter dentistry, you're not alone. At some point, almost every dentist hits one of these walls, and it doesn't always happen after many years of practicing. In fact, I knew I needed to do more with my dentistry within a year of graduating dental school, or I wasn't going to feel fulfilled. I have that type of personality ingrained in me. I've always wanted to do more and more and more of the things that I love. And that might be some of you watching this as well. Or maybe you're at a point of bread and butter procedures that are starting to feel too routine. The days are blurring together. You don't know if it's Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. You're not getting any real excitement anymore. And you've started wondering if this is all there really is to dentistry. Then, worst of all, you go home at night, you open your Instagram feed, and you see every dentist and their cousin posting one full mouth rehabs before and afters, All-on-X before and afters, wild surgeries, quad zygos, and so on and so on and so on. And naturally, as any human would, especially in a driven individual like yourself, especially if you're watching this video, you start to compare yourself and your daily dentistry to theirs. And then you go down the rabbit hole of wanting to tackle All-on-X cases. I mean, why not? You place single implants, you've done a few surgical courses, you've seen the dollar value of these cases, sometimes 20 grand, 25 grand, sometimes even more. I mean, it would seem like it would reignite your passion for dentistry again, right? Something new and challenging that you can do. You get to transform one patient's lives and their smiles for the better. And it definitely seems like it'll help you generate even more revenue for your clinic. Seems like a no-brainer, right? Well, hold on. Here is the truth, and listen closely, because this video will not only save you tens of thousands of dollars, but hours upon hours of unnecessary stress, time wasted, new equipment, new inventory, and will even save you your first case. And what I mean by that is, if you still decide to go down the path, the All-on-X path, despite everything I talk about today, I'm going to be covering some great tips that I wish I knew when I started this journey. Also, before I continue, I am not by any means trying to discourage you or every other dentist that is watching this from doing All-on-X surgeries and helping patients that need it. Instead, I want to take the next 15 minutes or so and go over at least 8 points to break down what I wish I knew before I did my first case. In turn, I can maybe help you reach an informed decision on your own. So, let's get started. Point number 1. All-on-X is not just single implants multiplied. Let's get one thing straight. All-on-X isn't just placing 4, maybe 6 implants in the bone and calling it a day. It's not the same game as doing a single implant or even a few. What you really need to keep in mind is, and I stress this time and time again, it's 1, a full mouth rehab, 2, a surgical procedure, 3, a prosthetic involvement, and 4, an emotional roller coaster for both you and the patient with many, many ups and downs. You're suddenly the architect of the home, the contractor, the surgeon, the interior designer, and the one you really did not sign up for, the therapist, all in one. And if you think you can wing it with some single implant knowledge, a course or two, or some short videos that you've been watching, I promise you, the first case will humble you badly. Moving on to point number 2, the financials. They look amazing on paper, and as I said in the beginning, until the reality hits. Yes, all NX cases can produce big revenue numbers. That's a given, but it's a keyword, revenue. What rarely anyone talks about in this space is actual profit. Overhead for single dental procedures, specifically all NX, is rarely talked about in dentistry. So let's break down the recurring costs with every case. One, you have implants, times 8 or times 12 if you're doing a double arch. MUAs, same thing. Now the lab bill. If you're doing analog conversions and no photogrammetry, your lab bill is likely 4 to even 6,000 an arch. Half of that if you're fully digital with photogrammetry. But now you've invested into one, a 3D printer and a photogrammetry unit, which obviously don't come cheap. Then come the printed temporaries. I won't even talk about analog conversions because God forbid those end up breaking during the healing stage. But with temps, you have to factor in not only the print costs, but any remakes due to them breaking and the time involved for every single appointment. A lot of dentists ignore the number of appointments and the hours that they put in for every one of these cases. With all that said, if you're not dialed in, you'll do 20 to 25 grand cases and walk away with less than you'd make doing a few single crowns. And worst of all, the stress per case is times 10 that of single crowns. So please don't do these for the money, especially in the beginning. Not to mention, I didn't even factor in the marketing costs per case, which will add on a few more grand to your overhead. For instance, the national average in marketing spend needed to get to one closed arch is close to $3,000 now. I've rattled off a lot of numbers, but you get the point. You aren't going to declare, I'm doing all on X and a fat stack of cash is just going to appear right in front of you. Let's move on to point number 3. Your lab will make or break you. This point is a good segue from the previous one on financials. So early on, I really underestimated just how crucial the lab aspect of full arch was. I mean, the lab is very important for almost all dental procedures. We know that, but especially for full arch. Your lab isn't just designing STLs and milling zirconium pucks. You need to work together with your lab. One, get a good pre-surgery design. And that also means you need great scans and photos from your end. 2, an efficient, under 30 minutes, well-designed immediate temporary. And you need to know what to look out for in the designs that you get back. Not just trusting the lab design blindly. If your designs suck, your healing will suck, your bite will be off, implants may fail at a higher rate, and your aesthetics can end up being horrendous as well. Once the patient is all healed, any changes to a second set of temps, if you're making a second set of temps or finals, need to also be communicated very well to the lab. And your lab needs to follow exactly what you tell them. Again, that comes with working with a good lab and great communication between you and the lab. So find a lab that specializes in full arch, especially the digital workflow. They need to know the nuances, communicates well, and isn't afraid to push back and give you feedback. That's very, very important. A good lab is worth more than any piece of technology tool you can buy for the lab or for your office for these all-on-X cases. I promise you that. Point number 4, reduction. Speaking of a good lab and good pre-surgical records, this is one of the most important steps in full arch dentistry. You mess this up, your case will turn into a nightmare that you can't easily do anything about. This is one of those things in dentistry that if you get wrong, you'll never want to place another implant again. I won't be spending too long on this point because I'm planning on making an entire video on just this point, on just reduction for these All-on-X cases. But simply put, you need to mark the patient's highest smile line. There's many ways to do this. I simply tell the patient to move their upper lip to the ceiling and to use the corners of their cheeks to bring up their lip. On top of that, I tell them to close their eyes because one, it's easier to make that face with your eyes closed. And then two, the vast majority of these patients have never smiled in their lives or for many, many years. And psychologically, they find it very, very difficult to smile or to even replicate a smile with their eyes open. So one, get their highest lip movement, take multiple photos, take a photo with a Paraprobe, mark that position and add +2 millimeters. That will be your reduction. A mentor of mine told me and said, all of these technologies, scanners, photogrammetry, even a CBCT, are 21st century luxuries. The maximum smiling photo, it's the only must in full arch dentistry. If you don't have that photo and don't get an accurate reduction measurement, you've already failed before you've even started the damn case. Moving on to point number 5, you need a strong reason and even a stronger why as to why you want to do All-on-X. I can't stress this enough. If your reason for doing this is just for the money or Instagram clout, you will not last. Just as with anything in life, there's a quote that goes, "The man who loves to walk will always walk further than the man that only loves the destination." It applies perfectly to full arch dentistry. If you're only doing it for the results, I beg you, don't even start. It's not worth it. You need to have a strong why, something that when shit hits the fan, which it will, with a case, you power through it and get it done because you actually love doing this. Think about this deeply. List some reasons out and why they matter to you. Do these sound like superficial reasons? Or are you lying to yourself? Or do you actually want to really do this for the right reasons and can sustain this for the long term? You have to love, accept, and be prepared to one, manage failures, disappointments, complexities during surgeries, prosthetics. Sometimes things will get chaotic. The emotional weight of these cases is real. I went on a week-long vacation to California last year and had to deal with a problem patient throughout my entire week vacation, submitting reports, calls, letters, etc., etc., etc. The amount of stress made me question on why was I even doing this in the first place? If I didn't have a strong why, a strong foundation, you wouldn't see me today still doing a full arch a year later and making this video. I promise you that. And now imagine if you had invested tens of thousands of dollars, many hours, and then you just suddenly call it quits. It doesn't make sense. So please, please have a strong why. Point number 5, the first case will take you 5 times longer than you think. It's not just the surgery. Yes, your first surgery will take you much, much longer, as with anything in dentistry, doing it for the first time. I remember my first double arch a few years ago took me the entire day, and I didn't even scan or load the case. But aside from the surgery, many dentists forget the numerous appointments afterwards, or even phone calls with patients, the post-ops, the additional appointments if a temp breaks, pain questions, managing expectations, second scans, and on and on and on. Not to mention if an implant fails and it needs replacement. Add another at least 3 to 4 appointments to get to the final. You'll do more phone calls and team communication than you thought was possible just for one patient. Now, I'm not saying that's bad. Here's the upside. If you survive your first couple of cases, it gets smoother, not easier, just smoother. You'll always run into issues. You're never gonna get away from that you need to solve. But again, If you're doing this for the right reasons, it'll make your life so much better at the end of the day. Number 6, it's next to impossible to get full arch implant cases organically or through word of mouth in the beginning. You don't, one, have a reputation built up in your area. When I started offering All-on-X, I used to hope patients would just magically walk through the door and ask for it, but obviously that's never going to happen. That was never the case. Only one case a year, or only one case in a year and a half, that actually happened. If you want to do any meaningful volume of All-on-X cases, you need to market your clinic and your services. You need a competent marketing agency and one that you can trust to have your best interests at heart. And that's obviously easier said than done. In fact, I never found that personally. So I had to start my own damn marketing agency 3 years ago with a close partner of mine. Now we take care of the marketing for my clinic and a few other close friends of ours that have offices where I can consistently do these cases weekly. So be prepared. You have to market your services and spend money when you offer $25,000 cases. They're not just going to walk through the door. And like I said earlier, you're going to spend at least $3,000 getting those cases per case. Point number 7, beyond the marketing, mentorship and community is going to guarantee your survival and success of your All-on-X cases. If I could scream one thing from the rooftops out of all of these points that I talked about previously, it's this: find mentors and a coach, preferably. Don't do this alone. Learn from someone who's made the mistakes, someone who has had the experience, someone who's lost sleep and rebuilt their confidence back. This is honestly the ultimate shortcut, and something I truly wish I did sooner. Mentorship will, one, frame your mindset and get you ready and more prepared for this journey. And then 2, it's going to teach you the do's and don'ts that are truly invaluable, especially when getting started. And most importantly, with a good coach, you'll learn how to sell. You're going to learn how to sell yourself and your skills. There's nothing wrong with not figuring out everything by yourself. In fact, it's stupid for you to do that. Pay someone that has already done what you want to do for their time. It will speed up your success massively. Shadow their surgeries, as many as you can. Ask dumb questions. And I promise you, the money you spend on this will save you in chair time, stress, and it's going to add up to 6 figures easily. If you can start with just one of these things, I would recommend starting with shadowing surgeries at a clinic that does a good number of these All-on-X cases the way that you want to do them. And you'll learn more in a few hours, in a day, than you can from any textbook passively. And the last thing that I wrote down and I will leave you with is you need to learn how to sell and be confident in doing it. There's very little selling involved in bread and butter dentistry. But on the other hand, your financial success with All-on-X depends on your ability to sell and persuade patients that, 1, the treatment is needed and will make a huge difference in their lives, and 2, that your office and you are the one that can deliver on it. The first point is easy to overcome. It's easy to persuade someone that they need treatment when obviously they have no teeth or failing teeth and are possibly in pain and embarrassed. The second point, however, convincing them that you are the one that is going to deliver on it, that is a whole different story, because it actually doesn't even start with you. It starts with your staff and the quality of their phone calls from the very beginning. If you're not good at selling, which no one naturally is from the beginning, you can't train your staff. You need to seek a mentor, someone who's sold hundreds of these All-on-X cases. Otherwise, again, you're just wasting your time and losing potential revenue and time by trying to only do it yourself. The investment you make here will save you from practicing these sales skills on real life opportunities to close thousands. And if you're not good, consider each case that you don't end up doing lost revenue, and then add that up and see how much that actually adds up to. So I hope my word vomit gave you a good starting point and a good perspective. These were some of the things that I wish I knew before starting my All on X journey. And before I go, I want you to drop in the comments, what's one point that you think I missed? I'd love to make more videos like this, discuss these points with you. And also, if you want to work with me personally, send me a message and I'd be happy to help. With all of that said, I'll see you in the next one.